In the 24th century, within the supernatural world's most notorious assassination group, a protagonist offered $30 million to have Luo Qingtong eliminated. The amount was quickly dismissed as insufficient, and a demand was made to increase it to $50 million, but even that was deemed inadequate. A sharply dressed man, visibly enraged, raised the bounty to $80 million before finally declaring $1 billion, stating, "This must be enough. Luo Qingtong has to die at all costs." At that moment, a cloaked figure calmly suggested verifying the cost of such missions beforehand. It was explained that targeting Luo Qingtong had long been the most sought-after mission in the assassination world, with a minimum price tag of $10 billion. This revelation left the others stunned and speechless. The cloaked figure continued, emphasizing that Luo Qingtong was the most powerful pupillary master in existence, her blood-red demonic eyes capable of perceiving nearly anything. The $10 billion price was not her regular assassination fee but represented the cost of 10 nations working together to bring her down. Elsewhere, Luo Qingtong was seen lounging on a sunny beach, holding a round marble object. After examining it, she remarked, "So this is my country's most valuable treasure? It doesn't seem special." Displaying no interest, the marble was dropped to the ground, where it caused a massive explosion upon impact. Panic erupted as beachgoers screamed and ran, assuming the event to be a terrorist attack. Luo Qingtong, startled by the explosion, was suddenly teleported away. On the western side of Zhen mainland, specifically at Nine Witch Mountain, an injured Luo Qingtong found herself being dragged by the hair by a servant. The servant mocked her, furious that a chance to torment her was almost missed. Another servant landed a brutal kick to her stomach, sending her flying. This act caused an argument among the group, one of them shouting, "Why kick her like that? She's dead now. What do we do?" The group, clearly panicked, stepped back while one servant apologized to the boss, claiming the act was out of anger. The boss ordered an immediate check to confirm whether she was truly dead. To everyone's shock, Luo Qingtong opened her eyes, regaining consciousness. Confusion filled her face as she muttered about her unexpected surroundings, remarking on the sudden change from being on a beach. A horrifying realization struck when her vision revealed only black and white. A startled cry followed, exclaiming blindness. Observing her survival, the boss smirked and noted that the plan could still proceed. Reaching for her, his movements were abruptly stopped as Luo Qingtong grabbed his hand. Thoughts shifted, weighing the audacity of these individuals, prompting swift retaliation. Her grip tightened around the boss's neck, forcing a scream. One servant yelled in disbelief, "How is this possible? Her cultivation was already crippled, and she's blind." Another servant denied the possibility, pointing out that even before being weakened, her strength had never been this overwhelming. Blessed with the power of pupillary vision, Luo Qingtong assessed the servants' weaknesses and confidently declared their vulnerability. Without hesitation, a sudden dash and leap toward the group began, coupled with a sharp remark about granting their apparent death wishes. A blood-soaked battle ensued under the cover of night. One by one, each servant fell, completely overwhelmed. Their shock was evident as they watched themselves being outmatched. Luo Qingtong dismissed them as insignificant, referring to them as ants. Amidst victory, blood coughed up from her mouth, and a wave of dizziness hit. Puzzled by the state of the body, questions arose regarding the injuries sustained and the unfamiliarity of the location. Suddenly, a mysterious gas emitted nearby drew her attention. The aura suggested an extraordinary attack, comparable to a heavy ion gun blast. Upon closer inspection with pupillary vision, the strength of the individuals responsible was revealed to exceed 6,666, a staggering number. A realization settled that an expert was operating behind the scenes. Retreating cautiously, cover was taken behind a rock as the approaching group was carefully observed. While pondering the situation, Luo Qingtong noticed the approaching intruders and quickly retreated. Suddenly, she dashed toward a rock and performed a backflip in front of them. The unexpected move left the intruders stunned, with one of them exclaiming, "How is Luo Qingtong making such strange movements?" Another shouted, "Chase her! Luo Qingtong must die no matter what." As the pursuit began, Luo Qingtong leaped onto a tree, observing her surroundings. What initially seemed like a strange forest now gave way to the realization that she was no longer in her own world. Closing her eyes, she admitted that time travel was not something she anticipated. If it weren't for the weakness of this body, escaping wouldn't have been necessary. Looking back at the intruders, she decided to let them remain arrogant for the time being. Ahead, a special mist-emitting area came into view. Recognizing it as an array, she felt a surge of luck and used her pupillary vision to examine the space further. With renewed confidence, she sprinted toward it. Upon arrival, she stumbled upon a naked man with long hair bathing in a pool. Shyness overwhelmed her as they made eye contact. The man, noting her presence, assumed she was blind. Luo Qingtong, flustered by the encounter, blushed at the sight of the handsome man. Although her vision only allowed her to see outlines, his appearance left an impression. Meanwhile, the intruders scoured the area in frustration, noting that her presence had seemingly disappeared. Determined not to let her escape, they searched thoroughly. Unbothered by their efforts, Luo Qingtong contemplated the situation. Concern arose over the possibility of being forced to leave the area. Acting quickly, she dashed through the water toward the man, covering his mouth with her hand and grabbing his arm. She pleaded, explaining an emergency and requesting his help, asserting that such a weak girl wouldn't be refused. Holding his arm tightly, the man noted that she wasn't blind. Luo Qingtong laughed lightly, dismissing the claim, and remarked that pretending to be blind had been part of her strategy. Irritation flickered across the man's face as he silently observed her antics. Luo Qingtong, meanwhile, wondered why he was staring so intently. Speculation arose that perhaps he had fallen for her at first sight. Playfully, she moved a stick along his chest, teasing that if he continued staring, her heart might beat uncontrollably fast. Embarrassment suddenly hit when the stick was pointed too low. Both were overcome with shyness. The man, flustered, addressed her awkwardly, while Luo Qingtong apologized profusely, claiming it had been an accident. Hoping to change the subject, she pointed out that her injuries were healed, realizing the pool must have restorative properties. A sudden realization struck: this man must have been here to treat his own injuries, meaning he couldn't move yet. The thought of his impending recovery filled her with unease. Deciding not to stick around, she quickly ran off, calling out a goodbye and adding with a playful wink that her earlier accident wasn't intentional. The man furiously glared at her, and Luo Qingtong, blushing, questioned why he was so upset. She pointed out that, while she had seen him naked, she had suffered embarrassment too. Despite her words, his anger didn't waver, prompting her to flee while declaring her departure. Wandering through the lush forest, Luo Qingtong couldn't help but reflect on the miraculous effects of the man's pool. Not only had all her injuries healed, but even her cultivation had been restored. Suddenly, a tug at her dress interrupted her thoughts. Looking back, she found a small baby pig clinging to her. She grabbed the pig, held it upside down by its leg, and examined it closely, wondering if it was the man's pet. Concluding that it didn't seem to belong to him, she questioned why it was following her. Despite its pitiful squeals, she placed the pig down, patted its head, and told it to go on its way. There were more pressing matters to attend to, and there was no time to spare for the animal. The pig, however, gave her an adorably pitiful look, which she dismissed, insisting she wouldn't fall for its act. Suddenly, one of the intruders shouted, "Over here! She's here!" Just as this happened, the baby pig bit Luo Qingtong's finger, drawing blood. Furious, she grabbed the pig and shook it angrily, demanding to know what it was doing. The intruders closed in, relieved to have finally found her. One of them taunted, "Let's see where you can run now." However, they were quickly struck by shock upon realizing that Luo Qingtong's cultivation had not only returned but had broken through to a higher level. "She's a martial master now," one exclaimed. Another shouted, "She must have a heavenly mystery pill. Hand it over, or don't blame us for being impolite." Luo Qingtong smirked confidently and challenged them to try taking it if they could. The intruders, filled with determination, began their chase. To everyone's surprise, the baby pig suddenly spoke, mocking them as ignorant fools. It declared that a heavenly mystery pill was nothing compared to the restorative liquid pool Luo Qingtong had used earlier. The pig explained that even someone whose dantian had been crippled could become a cultivation genius after using that pool, rendering their pursuit meaningless. After bathing in the pool, the pig mocked that these people only understood the value of a heavenly mystery pill, calling them country bumpkins. He added that it was embarrassing for someone like Luo Qingtong to be chased by such trash. Hearing this, Luo Qingtong grabbed the pig tightly, making him shout in protest. Gently but firmly, she asked if he thought her blindness meant she couldn't see his mouth moving while he insulted her. The pig, now panicking, pleaded that she couldn't treat him this way, claiming to be an ancient divine pig. He warned her that if she killed him, she would regret it. Luo Qingtong questioned the legitimacy of his claim, calling him an evil pig instead. With tears in his eyes, the pig quickly backtracked, admitting he was wrong. He declared that he was now her contracted beast and warned that killing him would severely damage her cultivation. Reluctantly, Luo Qingtong dropped the pig to the ground, stating she would deal with him later. With confidence, she then announced it was time to hunt her prey. Luo Qingtong retrieved a miniature crossbow from her belongings, strapping it onto her hand. The pig, impressed but skeptical, commented that the crossbow looked too decorative to be practical. He wondered if it might be a treasure from the Smelter Institute, amazed that Luo Qingtong could craft something so intricate with such ease. She chuckled, teasing that he simply hadn't seen enough of the world. The pig grumbled at her self-confidence as Luo Qingtong whispered, "Now, it's showtime." Standing on a tree branch, Luo Qingtong watched as the intruders split up to search for her, determined to find her at any cost. Patiently waiting for the perfect opportunity, she moved silently as one of the intruders separated from the group. Striking swiftly from behind, she slashed his head, leaving him lying on the ground in a pool of blood. Observing the others from her perch, she remarked that while she couldn't take them head-on, when it came to assassinations, they were no match for her. One of the intruders discovered the body and shouted, "Number 6." Before he could react further, a flurry of arrows pierced his body, striking him in multiple places and dropping him instantly. Alarm spread among the remaining intruders as one shouted, "Number 13." Panic set in when they realized that a mere martial master was capable of assassinating even a martial commander. One of them stammered in disbelief, wondering how she had managed this with such inferior cultivation. As chaos unfolded, Luo Qingtong appeared behind one of the remaining intruders, asking, "Were you talking to me?" Startled, the intruder turned to see Luo Qingtong standing calmly with her cultivation stick. Before they could react, she swiftly dispatched them all. The lone remaining intruder, a young woman, trembled and declared it impossible. She demanded to know who Luo Qingtong was. Casually, Luo Qingtong taunted her, questioning whether she intended to escape or accompany her comrades to hell. The terrified intruder turned and fled, but Luo Qingtong pursued her with ease. Catching up, she pressed her cultivation stick against the girl's head, killing her instantly as blood poured from the wound. "It's over," Luo Qingtong said, coldly. From behind, a voice interrupted her. The handsome man from before, now dressed in a royal white robe and his silky braided hair flowing, approached and commented on her crossbow. He noted that it had no spiritual energy, making it usable even for ordinary people. As Luo Qingtong searched the bodies of her fallen foes for useful items, the man observed her with a mix of irritation and intrigue, thinking to himself how shameless she was for taking advantage of the dead. He muttered that her earlier accident was clearly no accident. Unaware of his thoughts, Luo Qingtong found an item among the corpses and exclaimed in surprise. Startled by his presence, she screamed in outrage. The man, amused, asked if she was embarrassed, adding sarcastically that she still wanted to run. Trying to play it off, Luo Qingtong laughed nervously, calling it a coincidence that they met again. She tried to pacify him, saying, "Hey, handsome guy, let's talk this out. No need to act rashly." As he moved closer, she dodged his attempt to bind her with spiritual energy. Surprised, the man noted to himself that she had managed to evade his spiritual bind, finding her even more interesting. He decided to get serious. Realizing she was outmatched, Luo Qingtong turned to flee. The man floated into the air, surrounded by a bright light, showcasing his immense spiritual power. Watching him, Luo Qingtong was stunned, thinking that she had never seen a man so strong. Concluding there was no way to defeat or escape him, she quickly devised a plan. Pretending to faint, she collapsed into his arms, completely freezing him in place. Hugging him tightly, she teased, "Handsome boy, could it be that you're so obsessed with me you just can't let me go? Fine, but I'm not an easy woman to win over. Since you're so exceptional, though, I'll reluctantly accept your love." Leaning closer as though to kiss him, she caught him completely off guard. At the last moment, the man, flustered, pushed her away and retreated, calling her bold. Luo Qingtong laughed heartily at his reaction, thanking him for giving her an opportunity to escape. She waved goodbye and ran off, leaving him both irritated and confused. Frustrated, the man muttered to himself that she had done it all on purpose. Later that night, Luo Qingtong sat by a riverbank in the forest, reflecting on the close call. She admitted it had been terrifying. The baby pig, resting on her lap, commented that despite her fear, she still had the audacity to provoke such powerful individuals. Luo Qingtong replied that waiting around to die wasn't an option. The pig begrudgingly admitted that her tricks were impressive. Luo Qingtong, patting him on the head, asked what exactly he was, a talking, so-called ancient divine pig? The pig stood proudly, warning her not to look down on him. The pig arrogantly claimed that his current state was only because of the seal suppressing him. In the past, he was the #1 pig who roamed all 4 seas. Even the phoenixes and dragons had to address him as their granddad. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but giggle at his bold statements. Enraged by her reaction, the ancient pig insisted he was telling the truth, emphasizing that only ancient divine beasts were capable of forming reverse blood contracts with humans. He accused her of lacking basic knowledge, asking if she had any common sense at all. Luo Qingtong apologized, admitting her ignorance. Internally, Luo Qingtong wondered about this strange world, questioning why she was here, as well as the identity and condition of her current body. Looking at her reflection in the water, she noted that she still appeared the same as before. Her attention then shifted to a golden emblem in her possession. Holding it up, she wondered what it represented. Suddenly, a sharp headache struck, and a voice began speaking in her mind. The hallucination revealed details about a secret guard insignia belonging to the Tiano country. Startled, she exclaimed, "So it's them. They're the ones who wanted to harm me." The voice continued, referencing the engagement. If she hadn't been satisfied with it, she could have simply cancelled it. Why did she have to hurt him? Desperately, Luo Qingtong demanded to know the speaker's identity. Gathering herself, Luo Qingtong introduced her identity. She explained that she came from the eastern country, a lower-ranked nation, where she was known as Luo Qingtong, the first miss of the prominent Luo family. Widely regarded as her family's #1 genius and the eastern country's most beautiful woman, her background carried significant prestige. Suddenly, a group of people dressed in black robes surrounded her. Injured and alarmed, she coughed and demanded to know who they were and how they knew she had been training in seclusion. Among the intruders, a beautiful woman approached while giggling. The woman mockingly asked, "How does it feel to become trash, first miss?" Luo Qingtong, recognizing her immediately, shouted her name in disbelief, "Luo Zini. It's you! It's actually you!" A flashback played in Luo Qingtong's mind. She recalled caring for Luo Zini, promising her while she was bedridden that she would recover. Luo Qingtong had vowed to use all her spiritual herbs and medicines and hire the best doctors to help her heal. In one memory, Luo Zini coughed weakly and called out, "Sister." Later, Luo Qingtong happily presented Luo Zini with the best spiritual herbs, assuring her that they would strengthen her body. Overwhelmed, Luo Zini hugged her sister, expressing her gratitude. Another memory showed Luo Qingtong teaching Luo Zini how to chop wood, praising her for her progress. Luo Zini, overjoyed by her small success, expressed her love for her sister as they embraced. Back in the present, Luo Qingtong shouted at Luo Zini, asking how she could betray her after everything she had done for her. Luo Zini, unfazed, sneered and called her foolish. "Did you really think I'd be grateful just because you pitied me?" she retorted. Luo Zini questioned why Luo Qingtong deserved to hold her position and possess everything she had. "Why can't it be me?" she demanded. Luo Zini leaned closer to Luo Qingtong, studying her injured face. With a cruel smirk, she remarked that her elder sister must feel hopeless. She declared that this was just the beginning. Suddenly, Luo Zini splashed a liquid into Luo Qingtong's eyes, causing her to scream in excruciating pain. Blood streamed from her eyes as Luo Zini coldly announced that crippling her cultivation wasn't enough, she would also rob her of her sight. Luo Qingtong writhed in agony, shouting relentlessly as Luo Zini accused her of provoking the wrong people and living a life that was too blessed. Luo Zini ordered her guards to do as they pleased with Luo Qingtong, but made it clear that by tomorrow, she wanted her sister to appear at the city gates, stripped of her dignity and chastity. The guards, grinning sinisterly, acknowledged the order. As Luo Zini walked away, she proclaimed herself the Luo family's new #1 genius, claiming all of Luo Qingtong's glory for herself. Her laughter echoed as she departed. The guards chuckled darkly, anticipating their fun, while Luo Qingtong, seething, shouted after Luo Zini that even if she became a ghost, she would never let her off. She vowed to haunt her and ensure her death was miserable. Meanwhile, the ancient pig, noticing Luo Qingtong's state, asked what had happened to her. Stroking her hair, he commented that she seemed to have gone mad. Luo Qingtong, still filled with fury, replied that everything she had suffered was because of Luo Zini. She swore to remember her betrayal. Having taken over this body, Luo Qingtong declared that she would never let anyone humiliate her again and promised to exact revenge. She then dismissed the pig, suggesting he could rest easy now. Focusing on the secret guard insignia in her possession, Luo Qingtong muttered about the involvement of the Tianu royal family. The ancient pig asked if she now knew who was behind the attempts on her life. Luo Qingtong confirmed it was the Tianu country's royal family. She recalled her engagement with their fifth prince, Yuan Mo. The pig questioned why Yuan Mo would act against her if he was engaged to her. Luo Qingtong explained that while Yuan Mo was a superior country's royal prince, she was merely a lower country's first miss. Naturally, no one believed the match was suitable. She speculated that she was considered a burden to him. The pig responded indignantly, asking why the engagement had been made if he didn't like it. Luo Qingtong revealed that the engagement existed because Yuan Mo's life had once been saved by her mother. Yuan Mo, born with a cold body and unable to cultivate, owed her family a great debt. However, her mother had been missing for a long time. The pig scoffed, calling Yuan Mo ungrateful and accusing him of feeding his heart to the wolves. He assumed Yuan Mo had conspired against Luo Qingtong in an attempt to ruin her before breaking off the engagement. Luo Qingtong, smiling bitterly, called it a good method, mocking how effective it was at destroying her life. Luo Qingtong giggled joyfully, her excitement surging as she declared that she would make them realize their so-called royalty and heaven's pride were worth no more than a penny before her. She hadn't felt this thrilled in ages and confessed that torturing her prey to death was her greatest pleasure. With a creepy laugh, she embraced the thrill of the challenge. By morning, Luo Qingtong cleaned the blood streaking down from her injured eyes. Suddenly, her gaze sharpened as she noticed rare herbs, heaven bloodgrass, double moon lily, and heartless dragon root. The ancient pig, utterly bewildered, shouted in shock, "Mother of God!" Realizing that Luo Qingtong could figure out a cure for her poison so easily, he exclaimed that this rendered all secret prescriptions from big sects and clans utterly useless. Luo Qingtong mused inwardly that her pair of demonic eyes made nothing, whether medical formulas or refined equipment, hidden from her. She saw this as the true value of her pupils. Examining the poison further, Luo Qingtong concluded that it was a blend of medical ingredients and highly toxic substances, their properties polar opposites. Incorporating both the best medicine and the deadliest poison, it created a concoction so rare that even the Tiana country might not know how to make it. The pig, alarmed, asked who else might want to harm her. Shaking off the poison onto a nearby plant leaf, Luo Qingtong dismissed the question, saying things were only becoming more interesting. Determined, she declared it was time to find the ingredients to cure herself. On the other side of the forest, the handsome man appeared, roaming nearby. Sniffing the air, he muttered that she had already left, impressed by how a mere martial master had managed to evade his tracking. Spotting the remnants of the poison on a leaf, his curiosity deepened. Recognizing it as the most toxic of poisons, he realized her identity couldn't be as simple as it seemed. He speculated that she might not even be from the eastern country and wondered aloud, just who is this woman? Meanwhile, Luo King Tong wandered the forest, her gleaming eyes scanning for rare herbs. She identified stoneflower, which could cool the blood and eliminate poison, translucent boneflower, which countered coldness and pain, and winter renown, which was aromatic and beneficial to the kidneys. However, despite her search, she realized the nine witch mountain lacked the specific ingredients she needed to cure her poison. Frustrated, she declared it troublesome and closed her pupils, while the ancient pig lounged comfortably on her shoulder, teasing that her poison was so rare that finding a cure would naturally be difficult. Irritated, Luo King Tong told him to forget it for now and vowed to think of another way. Suddenly, the two noticed something strange in the distance. The ancient pig, visibly panicked, shouted that he had been so distracted by her antics that he'd forgotten about something important. Screaming in fear, he urged them to leave immediately or risk certain doom. With a dull expression, Luo King Tong asked what else he was hiding. The pig feigned innocence, nervously claiming he had no secrets, but they were interrupted by a noise that made both sit on the ground in caution. Luo King Tong examined the source and spotted a majestic manor in the distance.